Life is Story. Welcome back to Engage. 5 years ago, we started on a journey that was really led by our fascination for stories. 5 years later, we've met amazing people who've told amazing stories, who've touched lives, who've inspired, informed, and influenced, who've really taken us on a journey into their lives. Today, we talk to 4 of these people. Gentlemen who are in many ways accomplished in the things that they do, men who have told their stories, and men who are here really to talk about Engage and this journey. Without further ado, I'll just introduce us to this man, and I'll start with George.
Following your, you see the scriptures? Anyway, you said what? We are useful. All right, so Ikua, very useful. and other than that, proud father, a man in society, a widower, the Diane described me, an entrepreneur in the ICT space, a passionate speaker on life and business, a man can be debated, but I insist I am a man. Fun, intense, and generally very alive. That's how I would describe myself.
I don't think I can do as good a job as George in describing who I am.
I have a job to help him clean up.
So I'm Martin Oduor-Otieno. I've spent all my life in the corporate sector, and today I run a consulting firm called the Leadership Group, where I support leaders who want to be intentional and about growing themselves as leaders. And I've done that for a couple of years now. On the social side, I'm married, I'm a grandfather. I'm passionate about leadership and governance. I believe that that's what determines organizations which make it from those which don't make it.
Yeah, my name is Frankline Okata. I'm a sales leader. That is during the day.
At night,
outside,
there's no leading.
At night, I'm a writer, a humor writer for quite some time, and I've this passion for education. Do have a few things here to help students and schools, especially rural schools, to progress. And I plant a lot of trees. But more importantly, I'm a father and a husband to one.
Oh, you skipped me, but it's okay.
Save the best for last, Eddy. Save the best for last.
You can't count, but it's okay. I'm Eddy Kimani, born and raised in Nakuru County. Spent quite a number of my professional life in the media, about 15 plus years. Ended up joining public service, and I did some work as a communications director for the county government of Nakuru. So I was exposed to both the corporate and the public service. Now, as I sit here, I am committing my life, and I will be talking about that later because it was a result of being on Engage. I'm committing my life to advancing the conversation of mental health and well-being, more so for men, and also to try and see if we could advance that conversation in the workplaces. So I'm doubling that up together with being a media consultant. Besides that, at night, well, I'm a father. I have 2 sons, Tendai and Kiran, and I'm married to one.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. So when you hear the word storytelling, and even when you made the decision to speak at Engage, what was that experience like? What went through your mind? Just take me through that.
So mine was unique in that I was not asked. I forced my way into Engage. I actually applied, and I was rejected and told you have to be nominated. I told her that's an editable word that cannot happen, and I pushed, and Dawn here convinced Agatha, and they allowed me. Regrettably. It was a struggle. I had to get on that stage. For me, why I really wanted to get on the stage was I was going through a healing process. And for me, I wanted to tell my story, not just to help others. It was really for me to hear myself telling it. And it was to be honest, it was literally my Waterloo. It was my goodbye. And for me, that's why it was very, very important to get on that stage and tell my story. In a way, if you happen to watch my talk, I was talking to myself because I started all the way from when I was class 1 to the day when we were engaged. And it was really telling the story of how I became who I am and how the multifaceted person I am came together, and the successes and the joys I'd had and the tragedy, and how I was now back for my next chapter of my life. And that's why, for me, I really pushed. And thanks, Dawn, for squeezing Agatha against all protests. She kept trying to kick me out during the trainings.
You're a difficult student.
Difficult student.
The remedial classes out.
So there's another one.
So I'm a creative writer, and so I love arts. And for me, the way my expression of arts was always in the written word. So the first time I met the Engage team, who had come to a place I'm working, and they were trying to just mainstream the art of speaking, I think I loved it, and I went listening to a lot of Engage talks on YouTube. They're a little bit different from TED Talks. TED Talks are more about professional life, but it gave me something that I think I have a story to tell. So I felt that I had a compelling story that needed to be told out there. But I, unlike George, I never pushed for it to be done. Yeah. So I started to improve my speaking skills, and I enrolled for Engage Masterclass. They sharpened a little bit of my speaking skills, and they now told me, you need to speak. And that's how I got the opportunity to speak. And it was a great opportunity. I think it made me vulnerable, and for me, that is the greatest thing I took home from my experience with Engage.
Eddy, what has the impact of Engage been? So how did you get on this platform? I know you didn't canvas like some people here did. He even sent emissaries. So how's that experience been, and is it what you expected? Just take us there.
Great. It was a weekend, I think, on a Saturday. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the cast of Tinga Tinga the musical. So we had just finished performance, and we walk out. We had to do the traditional walk out and engage with the audience at the front of the Kenya National Theatre. So who do I meet? Agatha. 2 months later, she calls me and says, Eddy, hi, I loved the show, and I'd like you to come to Engage. Huh? Okay. Why? I would like you to come and tell your story. On the outset of all this happening, I was just coming out of a very dark season in my life. I had just, my job in Nakuru County had come to a close. I had separated from my wife. So I was coming out of a very dark phase. So I came back to Nairobi. I was fortunate enough to get our marriage back on. I went back home. So things were forming back up together again as a family, and myself just picking up myself from what I had gone through for that period, 2015, 2017. So she calls and says, I'd like you to come and share your story and your successes. I remember that's a word she used. So I said, okay, let me think about it. And I went back and I started thinking, it wouldn't make sense to really just talk about success. We all have our successes, but what people would want to hear more is what is going on in your life. And I'd gone through this dark season in my life, and I've been given an opportunity to come and talk about my life, but I think I was being asked to talk about my ups. So me thinking about what I will talk about got me a little bit scared. I was not quite keen on just because I had a very successful career as a media personality. I had been on TV, I had been on radio, I had worked for several big media houses, and I was there in terms of where I was as a media broadcaster. So I called Agatha, and I freaked out because I was still coming out of that dark part I was in previous couple of months back. Going to this Tingatinga or just being on Tingatinga was like a big high for me, picking up from where I dropped the ball.
Engage was very scary for me at first. A, because I didn't know what it was all about. B, because I was probably in one of the initial Engage sessions, and I had not been to an Engage myself, so I hadn't been there to watch how this thing works out. And so, when I was introducing myself, I didn't mention that I'm an executive coach, and that's how I met Don. So we're training as executive coaches together. And so when Don reached out to me and sort of said, come into this Engage stuff, I kind of went in as doing a favor to Don, who had been my classmate. And then the rigor that they took me through with my engagements just to prepare ourselves for this. And the first one or two trials were a flop, and we had to obviously do this over and over and over again before we got to the point of standing up on the stage. Having done it obviously over and over again, and with some courage being passed over to me by Don and Agatha, I got up on stage. And I guess once you get up on stage, it's perhaps not the script, but thoughts begin to come in your mind. Some drop off, so you miss out some things, you add on some things as you're speaking, and at the end it kind of pulls together. And it also helps that the audience at the Engage is a very active and engaged audience, and so they cheer you on, and that kind of gives you the further ammunition to go on. Yeah. So all in all, I think from the initial phases where there's a bit of fear of coming up on the stage to tell your stories to all these people, and also we've got certain things that are confidential to ourselves and to our families. So how do you open up and tell this life story? Because my Engage session was about we rise, we fall, we soar, and so as Eddy was saying, we can probably talk about when we are rising, but how do you talk about when you fall? And how do you then wake up again to go to the next point? So that was quite interesting for me from an Engage perspective. But I also found that obviously given how people know me and relate with me, there were aspects of my story that they wanted to hear about more than others. And I think that also kind of helped. So I've been a corporate person all my life, but I also spent a little bit of time in government, and people are quite interested. This week, yesterday, the former President Moi passed on, and I worked in government for 2 years when he was president, and people are quite interested in hearing the bit about, when you worked in government, what was that like? Mm. So those kind of things helped me formulate my Engage story. When I walked out of the stage, of course, there was a sense of, I can actually tell a story. I've told this story, and I've been able to consume the time that was allocated to me, and people have actually found this as something that was worth telling from the attention that I saw in the audience. And what has happened subsequent to that, of course, is a lot more people got to know about me and my story. And they've subsequently come up to me and said, we've watched you on Engage, we saw you there, we were there, etc., etc. We really liked that, that was really inspirational, I've actually picked up this and I'm running with it in my own life. I think that, each of us has got a story and we can make this out of it. And it was so nice to hear you speaking because it gave me something